Mike Murray from National Powersport Auction. Mike, thanks for coming back on. It's been about a year since we had you last on. That last episode, it really resonated with a lot of dealers, specifically in the used bike arena. We talked about aging inventory, turn rates, and I just want to kind of start out our conversation with the last time, since we talked. What are the major changes that you've seen in the used power sports market, the used motorcycle market here in 2025?
Great question. Definitely have seen more dealers participate in the pre-owned space. I've seen more dealers and very much more on the Harley-Davidson side. We've seen more Harley-Davidson dealers, kind of go from, we're in pre-owned, we have 10, maybe 15 bikes, to we are in pre-owned, we have 25 to 50 or 60 or 70 pre-owned bikes in inventory. That's probably been a big shift. For many, many years, there's been dealers that believed or felt they were in the pre-owned business because they had a couple of used bikes on the floor. And now we've seen more dealers really embrace that side of the business and understand that whole, 1-to-1, one new to one used is not a bad ratio. And there are, franchised, non-franchised Harley metric dealers that are sometimes doing months where they're doing 2 pre-owned to 1 new. That's something that has shifted what I believe is in a favorable direction. Not to slight our OEs, because the manufacturers are critical to our industry, but to the fact that dealers are finding that opportunity exists and they're not selling any less new product just because they have that used solution. They are finding out that there's additional customers available because they have that used product.
Yeah, for sure. We did talk a little bit about dealers last year kind of feeling the ripple effect from the 2021 spike. How are you seeing it on the pricing side of things? Have they kind of normalized a little bit now that everybody's kind of jumping in on this used bike strategy now?
So they have. We've seen the air come out of the proverbial COVID balloon on pretty much all product segments, except for sport bikes. That was the one product segment that was hanging on the longest. That being said, the average sale price, like the actual average dollar amount that things are selling for on the auction lane, are still over what they were in 2018 and 2019. But that's probably a result of inflation and everything costs more. I don't think there's a thing that you or I buy or use that doesn't cost more than it did 6 years ago. And so I think that's where some of that valuation change is in the industry, because those prices that have come down from the COVID highs yet, I'm looking at a report, that also has them maybe 8-10% higher than that 2018, 2019 average. That is probably the normal line. We did see sport bikes that were 15-20% higher than those 2018, 2019 averages. And those have come down and they're almost back in line with some of those overall averages being, roughly 10-ish% over that 2018, 2019 baseline that we use when we're looking at average auction values.
Yeah, I do want to bring that up. Mike, move a little closer to your microphone. I don't want to miss a word of this.
That's fine. Let me adjust my earbuds here and see if that helps. Is that better?
There you go.
Okay.
Yes, a little better. All right. So you mentioned some data that I wanted to kind of cover, and this is in the Powersports Business last article that you'd had in August, that you said, quote, that while new unit sales are plateauing or declining, used powersports units, motorcycles, UTVs, etc., are showing resilience. But some stats, the used UTVs are up 13.8% year over year in April, and dual sports are up 7.2%, touring bikes up 3.9%, motocross are down 2.9%. Are these kind of falling in line with an annual average that we're seeing, or is it just spiking in the seasonality month to month?
We do see some rises and falls month to month. Some of those product segments are also on the small side. So some of those percentage increases sometimes are not tied to a ton of volume. We don't get enough dual sport bikes. So, it's kind of like watercraft too, right? Personal watercraft, jet skis, whatever you want to call them, wave runners. When we see those values kind of rise and fall, we also got to realize that this isn't years of past where at any given auction, we would have 100 or 150 watercraft. We may only have 50 or 75. And the same would be true for that dual sport, a little bit of the motocross and things like that, right? Even especially like the sport ATV, what we would call quads forever, but just that sport, quad four-wheeler. The volume has gotten so low that sometimes it doesn't take much to move that. But you mentioned side-by-sides because that's an area where volume has continued to increase. So when we do see the average sale price and what's happening and the volumes on the side-by-sides increase, that's quite a bit more meaningful because there is so much of that product out there.
And how does that split up in the UTV segment, sport to the utility, the traditional
Yeah.
standard,
Yep.
UTV,
Yep.
what's selling more, what's selling better?
Boy, I think there's there's kind of the sport and the sport utility. Utility, straight up utility, your Kawasaki Mule or something like that. Those are out there. Most of what we see is sport and what I'm going to call sport utility, right? And Polaris and Can-Am really have several models that it's kind of utility, but I also got it to play around on just as much. And those are pretty closely tied. It's hard to differentiate because especially in the Midwest, they're not looking for a 70 mile an hour desert machine. They want something they can kind of do everything in. And down here in the Southwest, boy, 80, 90% desert machines. Regionally speaking, they both are important and popular. Respectively. There was nothing surprising in them. Our Cincinnati, our Kansas City, our Dallas locations, pretty much everything but San Diego. And even San Diego, now that I think about it, we don't get as many of those kind of sport utility ATVs, but the rest of the locations get a ton of them, and they do very well. And the sport ones we see primarily in San Diego, a little bit in Sacramento, Dallas, a little bit in Florida, a little bit in Atlanta. And again, that market is continuing to grow, and dealers are finding those opportunities in that secondary UTV side-by-side market because it's a great solution to the new prices.
That's great, yeah. And let's kind of switch gears here to that location base. You've added some different auction centers recently, right? Kansas City being the most recent, but you've kind of, if you're looking at the United States map here, you've got all of these important markets kind of covered in these areas here. Just walk us through all the different areas of the country that you service, and are there any plans to open them up in some of the northern United States?
Love that question. We actually have a list here, but I can't show you. Or actually, I can show you as long as you don't put the video out there of all of the next 5 locations. Now, we do have some interesting ideas on how to continue to cover the country, but let me start with your original question or the precedent. So, along the West Coast, we have Portland, we have Sacramento, we have San Diego. San Diego being, where NPA was founded over 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I guess it is now. And the West Coast auctions, we get the West Coast type of product. We see some interesting seasonality up at Portland. Portland location services kind of Oregon and Washington, Idaho, kind of that upper Pacific Northwest corner there. And even the inland Northwest, I don't know how many people knew the INW is a thing like the PNW, but I learned that from being up there, that the people that are a bit inland from what we call the PNW, they've called themselves the INW. So I don't know, fun fact for your listeners here. But that whole region up there, it's a difficult region. I have a lot of respect for the dealers up there, because their seasonality is interesting. They are truly solar powered. And when we see markets like Portland and Seattle have good sunshine weather, or at least moderate temperatures and opportunities, we see the dealers do really, really well. And, they get a cold snap, they get a lot of rain. It really dampens, sorry for the pun, but it does dampen their spirits and their customers' excitement. So we've learned a lot about that. And we continue to basically give them opportunities to participate, not only in the Portland, but the Sacramento and San Diego auctions. We run transportation promos between those 3 locations periodically during the year to support that change in market dynamic there. Sometimes they got product they need to get up there, and sometimes they got product they need to get out. And Sacramento sits in the middle. And of course, San Diego, right? We got 364 days of sunshine a year. So we've always got a pretty stable market. Moving east, Dallas, again, one of our big facilities, just had an auction there last week. Pricing is always pretty stable, other than when maybe they have some super cold weather, some travel delays or something. Sometimes we see little blips, but generally speaking, very stable. Kansas City has exceeded our expectations with dealer participation, both on them sending consignments using DirectBuy and purchasing. That area definitely is benefiting from a new opportunity to manage their pre-owned inventory, whether they're bringing it in or getting it out of the store. So that's been super exciting. We also are growing our RV marine space there as well. We've done a lot more in the RV marine space since I've talked to you a year ago. And Kansas City is one place where there's not really been a great solution in that part of the country. So we're excited to see that grow. Cincinnati was 15 years old, 16 years old now. Been a great location. Also running 2 auctions a month there, like our bigger locations. And then all the way up to Philadelphia. Philly has been a great location as well. We definitely see some seasonality there, but it's interesting to see seasonality if you try to compare Portland to Philadelphia. Although they both see winter, no harm on my Pacific Northwest people, but the Philly people seem to be more aggressive, even out of season. They seem to be just a little tougher. I don't know. Might be using the wrong word there. Again, love my Pacific Northwest dealers and friends, but boy, those Philly dealers, they seem to be hustling bikes almost 12 months out of the year, regardless of weather. And then down the East Coast, you got Atlanta. Atlanta, again, one of our original facilities, 2 auctions a month. Atlanta is a crossroads, a little bit like Cincinnati. The diversity of product we get through Atlanta is super interesting, from 4-seat converted slingshots, stretched out Hayabusas, crazy paint, all the types of things, whether the repo or dealer consignments. Atlanta tends to have the most interesting product. And then Lakeland, which is, I guess, would be our second newest facility. And Lakeland does a ton of boat and RV. Obviously, being down there, Lakeland is between Tampa and Orlando, if you're not familiar. So tons of boats, tons of RVs, tons of power sports. They have an interesting season that's a little bit opposite of the rest of the country. They're just coming into season. During the summer, the heat and humidity are darn near unbearable for riding. But just in the last 30 days, the temperatures and humidity has reached a point where the dealers are starting to pick back up again, which is awesome. And we've got an auction there next week. In fact, again, by the time this hits the air, that'll be irrelevant. Every 2 weeks, there's an auction in Lake.
And so you're running multiple auctions at all of these locations every single week, and multiple per month. So, I mean, there's lots of different opportunities. And we talked last time a little bit about, you may have a physical location that's close to your dealership, but you have a good logistics chain that you can transfer other online bid units to their closest facility and pick it up there, or even have it delivered to your dealership. Yep. Is that right?
Absolutely. So about 90% of our units are sold to an online buyer. We totally love when people show up to our auction locations, right? We love the interaction. We love having them see the product firsthand. That is our preference. The world has shifted since COVID. People have gone to an online marketplace mentality, and that's great, and we support it. And so, like I say, for 90% of the product that we buy, the first time they see it is when they pick it up with their truck, or when it gets off one of our trucks. And moving a particular motorcycle, side by side, whatever, from one location to another, we have a complete network to solve that. I can move stuff across the country. I can move it from San Diego to Dallas or Cincy or wherever. It's not necessarily what I would say inexpensive, but it tends to be a value proposition for a lot of dealers. We see dealers buy what I'll call out of area frequently. Very frequently, they're looking for product. It's more important to find the right product, and they just adjust their bids. Hey, it might cost them $300 or $400 to get it to their store. But if they adjust their bidding mindset, it doesn't really matter.
Especially buying it from a market that maybe might not do so well with that type of product, like, utility UTVs in San Diego, you get them over to Texas.
The markets
Perfect.
between the locations, we do see dealers take advantage of that, and you don't know until you look. And so I always encourage dealers to look at other auctions. I don't know what particularly sells good retail for a particular dealer in whether it's Kansas or Georgia or wherever else. And for a long time we had the easiest analogy is we had Southern California dealers buying Dynas from all over the country a couple years ago when Harley-Davidson Dynas went through the roof, and they could pay darn near retail book in Dallas or Cincinnati and ship it to Southern California and have no problem still making 20 points on the deal. So that happens from time to time, but the only way to find out is when dealers actually log on and take a look and find out what that opportunity is.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Let's talk more about some current market trends and valuations on values, right? So, the on-road average sale price, you guys published that it rose significantly, over $1,800 week over week in early July. And then certain categories, off-road average sale price has had some softness, especially when there's an influx in inventory. What are you seeing right now, August, September-ish, moving into October, fall time? Are prices trending up? Are they holding steady? What kind of categories are moving volatility?
This is a great question, and I hope everybody pays attention because it is the tale of two values. Dealers, when they do watch the National Powersport auctions online, they tend to watch the stuff they like, which most dealers like. excuse me, they tend to watch the clean sport bike, the clean cruiser, the good value priced, 82 CR score, and they go, man, that's bringing a lot of money. And, a lot of money is relative, but they are holding their value. If it is a clean, low mileage, on-road piece of equipment, whether it's a nice, BMW 1200, could be GS, could be RS, could be whatever, could be a Vulcan, could be a Honda Fury for for all consideration, or even the Harleys. When you're looking at lower mileage, cleaner units, the values are very stable, and they are typically a little more than dealers wish they were. Now, the other side of that coin is dealers will watch the auction and go like, oh man, those Dynas are bringing all the money, or Road Glides or Honda Furies or whatever, and they get one on a trade that's a little rough, or it has 35,000 miles and a dent in the tank and some corrosion on the forks and the brakes and, a bent lever and a few things like that, to where, hey, that's not the 82 CR you were trying to buy. This is more like a 72 CR. Yet the valuation disconnect exists to where they don't quite realize how much those miles and condition matter. And so we are seeing some dealers that still are getting themselves a little hung up in their valuation expectations, because they're not taking into account the quality of the product and the miles on the product compared to what the book says, or the last 10 units that they've watched and wanted to buy. If they watched the rough stuff they didn't want to buy, they'd realize pretty quickly, hey, there's some mediocre to subpar bikes, however you want to describe it, that they're a relatively good value, but for a lot of franchise dealers, the opportunity to bring those in and recon them is a challenge, which is why the clean stuff that's very close to retail is bringing what I'll call a premium, and that stuff that needs $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 worth of work is maybe $3,000 less, because they don't have the time or the resources to do it. So when I look at, when someone asks me, hey, what are values doing? I go, well, it's a depends question. Clean retail type product that's going to be popular and things you want to put your name on, they're doing great. Your trade-ins, stuff you may not want to retail because of the quality, because it's got an oil leak, because it needs 2 tires and brakes, and it's been dropped on both sides, that value is not the same. And that's something that we really work hard to educate dealers on, that spread between a clean and a rough bike continues to be bigger than it has been in years past. And this has been a phenomenon just about the last 18, maybe 24 months, where we've seen those values diverge compared to what they used to kind of track similarly.
Interesting. And just for everybody listening, the CR is the condition report score that you give a book.
The way we score it.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a compilation score. Yeah, it's a condition rating or a condition report score. It's a compilation on mechanical and cosmetic issues. We break it down into a cosmetic and a mechanical side. NPA has the most comprehensive condition report process anywhere. As we've gotten into boat and RV, we've found out that some of the car auctions don't have anything near what we're already doing in boat and RVs. But on the Powersports side, we're looking for anything that we could tell a prospective buyer and a seller about their product, so that everybody understands what true fair market value is. What is the true wholesale value? If this has a valve tick, or if this needs third gear, or if this thing appears to be darn near perfect. That's our goal with our condition reports, is full disclosure. And, it's critical when establishing these variances, so that we can intelligently answer questions like you just asked. Hey, what are values doing? Well, it depends. If I come out and say, dude, values are super strong, things are great, I get a dealer that sends me 10 rough trade-ins, and he goes, hey, what the heck? You told me values were great. I put clean trade in all of these, and I'm losing my butt. Well, these aren't clean trade bikes. These are below rough trade bikes. And by the way, that book has a terrible job of being right in 50 different states, 12 months out of the year. Unfortunately, the book is never going to be right in all the places. You really got to go to the NPA value guide to understand what's really happening with different makes and models.
100%. Yeah. Okay. So the CR, they're looking at it physically, they're starting it up, they're listening to it. You said third gear. Is there an actual test ride that these?
We test ride everything. Yes,
go on?
We test ride everything, and if something shows up with missing a front or a rear brake, we will not test ride it. So we tell our sellers too, hey, if you have the opportunity to do a minor repair like a brake or something that makes this thing safe so I can ride it, I can then get you a complete score. An incomplete score is a negative, obviously. If I can't road test it, well, I can't tell you the engine's good or the transmission's good, because I cannot put a load on it. I cannot run through the gears. Well, things like Hayabusas and M109s, we particularly check that second, third gear shift, because they are known to be a problem. And so when we find those, we look for them. And that's what our team does, is they know to look for certain things. They know that, a Yamaha automatic cam chain tensioner makes a particular sound before it's about to adjust again. And maybe in 100 or 200 miles, it clicks again and it quiets down. They know what that sounds like versus, hey, that's actually excessive noise. So our team goes through a, gosh, I don't know, 50, 60 point inspection. We're measuring tread depths. We're looking at tire dates now. We're looking for dents and dings and rims. We're looking for warped rotors, brake pads. We don't take anything apart, but we do a full visual and mechanical test.
That's great. Yeah. So we keep the transparency very high on that. And the dealer that is either bidding or selling on that bike, they definitely know what they're getting into.
Absolutely.
It's time to run the auction. Yeah, that's great.
You just said that our lenders, our finance companies, we have set a high standard for them when it comes to understanding the quality of their product and having correct reserve expectations as well. So, sorry, go ahead. What was that question?
No, 100%. I just wanted to see if there was any other surprises this year. You mentioned, big divergence between the scoring of really great, clean, super low mileage, beautiful, put on your showroom now bikes, and then the opposite of that divergence in those values for the same type of motorcycle, essentially, but on the condition report. Any other surprises in 2025? You see anything that's moving real fast, maybe collecting dust? What are the movers on some of these segments or models that you're seeing go through the auction?
Boy, I think the value proposition units are still a very good opportunity for dealers. I think that's the things that that wholesale value, maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 motorcycle. Again, whether it's a metric cruiser, whether it's a Harley Sportster, whether it's a dual sport, something that can be under $10,000 on the retail floor and clean, and maybe give an entry opportunity to a customer that, hey, that was maybe a $15,000 or $20,000 bike new. If you want to get involved, you want to get interested, you're payment sensitive, you need an excuse to save money on a bike. That is the thing that I see dealers do pretty darn well with. The high dollar stuff, super high end side by sides, they're hit and miss. Sometimes we do see the super, tricked out X3 and other models that can get, pretty nicely built. They'll ring the bell every now and then, but I would say that value proposition bike for the retail customer is a critical segment that continues to do well. And outside of that, and again, that's not new, but I do think it's important that dealers understand that the dealers that are doing well in pre-owned are leading with that solution for their customer base. Hey, I can get you on something if you have reasonable credit, reasonable down payment. Maybe you can be in the 200 range. Maybe you can be in a 200 range on a monthly payment, or a qualification is easy, or whatever the situation might be. Maybe even a cash buyer or something.
We're also seeing that with the new OEMs releasing some $10,000 dollar MSRP and under type motorcycles.
Absolutely.
Lineup, Harley, the most recent. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's a big trend that we're seeing not only in the pre-owned, but the new as well. So interesting. Okay. Last time we spoke, you predicted EVs would be a growing segment, whether dealers like it or not. Some people don't even like to talk about them. Some people wish they would go away, but they're here. And let's just kind of talk about an update on that prediction. They're still kind of a small piece of the pie, but yet they're creeping into the secondary and the resale market. Zero, Livewire, Sur-Ron is in the mix. What's your outlook still in this EV market when it comes to the auction space?
So I'll be very upfront. I'm surprised there's not more out there. A year ago, I thought there might be more of a lean into it. It just felt like it was going that way. And if I'm thinking back correctly, I even remember, OEs sharing news stories, whether it was Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, plus, all these other brands, Sur-Ron, all the things kind of talking about it. The biggest segment continues to be, from what I've seen, and it's hard to track because these things aren't registered, are that Sur-Ron type, electric dirt bike that the, 13 to 16-year-old kids are ripping around in every neighborhood that I go in. They're $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Some of them are less, but they're not registered. Don't appear to, they appear to, end up transacting on Facebook Marketplace. There's no titling, and so that segment is awesome, and I'm glad to see it growing because I think those kids are going to want to get on motorcycles, be it gasoline powered or the next version of electric when it gets to their side. I've seen, again, stay on Sur-Ron, I've seen their bikes that are more like a 250 size motocross type bike or dual sport. I don't know that they're flying off the floors. Zero has just pioneered the crap out of that space, and it doesn't seem like it still has taken the inertia and built on it yet. I hope to see them continue to be successful, and I hope other companies can work with them or they can continue to carry that through, because I think Zero has done some very cool stuff, but it's an expensive bike. All that technology is expensive. Harley learned that the hard way with Livewire, and now their newer product, that newer Livewire stuff. I see it. I think it looks cool. Looking at their annual sales performances, I think they're still only selling a couple hundred a year, so that they just don't seem to be embraced by the mass public yet, at least on the motorcycle side.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of pushback, not only from the legacy dealers not wanting to carry this brand new stuff, but also the riders not really transitioning into this EV space. That's more of kind of a younger buyer, or like you mentioned, the guys ripping through the neighborhood, the 13, 16-year-old kids. So yeah, I mean, if Harley and the Livewire is to exist, I mean, I'm not really sure what they can do more, give up, or, kind of put some better R&D behind it into the legacy rider that wants these big touring models, or even trikes for that matter. It's kind of an interesting thought.
I think it still comes down to a price point. And I think I can speculate, and I think it's more than speculation. When Harley released the original, Livewire bike, super cool, right? Mm-hmm. It was $30,000. And you couldn't go 100 miles. You couldn't go 100 miles. You're lucky to go 50 miles. It was a toy. It was a $30,000 toy. And although they showed it to all the people that bought CVOs, that bought $40,000, $50,000 road glides from them, that wrote checks and, hey, would you buy this? Like, oh yeah, we'd totally buy that. Well, the result was, well, no. I mean, it would be cool to ride for a day, but I don't want to own that. And that was just, again, they found out. But again, love the fact that they leaned into it and tried it. I think that's important. If we don't try things as an industry, if we don't put things out there and say, hey, will this work? Will people enjoy it? We'll never find out. And so as much as it may not have been the success that we had once believed, it definitely has opened up that path that just isn't completely frictionless yet, so to speak. With I think entry, cost to play is the biggest thing. Sur-Ron has that balancing point where you and I would love to play on one, but no, man, I'm going to get on my bike or my car to go somewhere real. But hey, ripping a Sur-Ron around the neighborhood or a dirt trail, yeah, that'd be super fun. And hey, I need something for my kid who can't quite drive yet. Okay, go. You can, great range, great speed, everything else. So it's still an unsettled market, I guess, would be my final thought on.
Time will tell. Well said. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about sourcing smarter, right? So dealers are definitely picking up more used bikes. You shared a story previously about how some dealers are saying, hey, we're not taking any trades at the moment, or, that's not part of our franchise, like a Harley dealer not taking any metric models. That actually stuck with a lot of people in that last episode that we did. What's your updated advice to these dealers who are still maybe a little cautious or nervous about saying yes to some off-brand trades, or motorcycle taking in off-road or PWC, or maybe even just a weird trade period? What's your advice to them?
So I think the same thing is still true. And I think I shared the story of being in a meeting that we were hosting, talking to a bunch of dealers. And I basically tried to gauge their confidence level. And how confident are you that all of your salespeople are ready, willing, and asking about a trade 100% of the time, and even trying, bringing that trade to the sales manager or general manager desk? What's your level of confidence that all of your sales staff are doing that? And I said, raise your hand if you're above 90%. And none of them raised their hand. And when I got to 80%, there was one guy that raised their hand. They're part of an automotive dealership group, and so they are very well trained, and they very much retrain, and they're process oriented. It was basically, when I asked the individual Powersport dealers, and this group was from all over the country, and they were a bigger 20 group. These were some good sized dealerships that probably have 10, 15, 20 salespeople, if not more. We got into the 30 or 40% range of their confidence when it came to them believing that their sales staff was correctly or aggressively or actively engaging their customers on trade-ins. So I believe that is still something for the dealer body to go back and train and check and encourage and even incentivize your sales staff to ask for that trade. Today, because this wonderful little thing called NPA DirectBuy exists, to where, what are you going to do with a 68,000 mile road glide that's a little beat up and leaking oil? Put it in NPA DirectBuy. Let us be the bad guy. Let us take the hit. Let us figure out what that thing's really worth. If you don't have a retail prayer, or you can tell that thing would be $5,000 in your service department, and then when you're done, you're not sure if you'd want it. We have that secondary or even tertiary buyer base for those rougher products. Same things. We've had some, Panigale V4s that some dealers have taken in, like, man, I don't know what to put on this thing. I know they're super expensive, but I'm not sure I could resell this thing. What are you guys seeing? And that's an example of a product that does incredibly well at the auction. And I think, boy, the last 5 of those I've seen gone through. I know the dealer was happy with the number we put on it. He goes, "Poof, boy, if you're paying that, I'm in." So, NPA DirectBuy is the solution for that product where there's a question or a concern or a lack of confidence on the value. We are that backstop, and we will get you out of that trade, but you got to get that trade. And I hope dealers make 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope they make $1,000 using DirectBuy. Hey, you know what? That's a $6,000 bike to us. There's no reason you can't put it in the books for $5,000 with the customer. Still make the $1,000 on the trade, or at least $200 or something. You don't have to book it for whatever we tell you. That opportunity exists, just like when someone walks in off the street and goes, "Hey man, are you buying bikes?" "Yeah, we're buying bikes. What do you got?" "Well, I got this 68,000-mile Road Glide that's totally beat up," or "I got this Yamaha," or "I got this Honda Fury that's been down on both sides and needs a tank and needs a fender and needs a seat and also runs a little rough and needs a cleaning." Hey, cool. Let me pop this in NPA DirectBuy and let me tell you what I can give you on a wholesale number, because you have a wholesale bike, my friend. That's an opportunity for a dealer to make a couple $100, if not more. It just requires some active engagement with their customer and the tools that are available to them.
And they get to earn a sale out of it because they're taking that in on trade towards something that they're retailing. Yeah. Okay.
Last time I checked, they only make gross margin on VIN numbers. So touch less VIN numbers, make less money.
You've said that before. Yep. And if the dealer can facilitate, removing a motorcycle out of somebody's life and putting in a brand new one, and they're unsure about it, yeah, obviously the NPA DirectBuy is a great resource to tell them exactly where that number is. Let's segue now into MotoHunt, right? So let's talk a little bit about this new increased partnership with MotoHunt. MotoHunt has had NPA wholesale data for years now, but for the dealers who aren't maybe using either platform deeply yet, MotoHunt has the NPA wholesale values, but now they have the DirectBuy integration as well as the run list. Mike, how are you seeing this MotoHunt and NPA partnership working together for smarter inventory appraisals and making it easier for dealers?
I think it's a natural evolution for both of the companies we both work for. I think the technology and software that's come out just in the last couple of years for dealers is solving some of those ease of use challenges. We've worked with some companies here and there, and I've asked some dealers about it, and a lot of them feel like, man, I need one less thing to log into, not one more thing. And so when we can work together and create a solution that will seamlessly work between the platforms, I think it's a massive win for the dealers. I think it's going to make their lives easier. I think it's going to open their, I hate to say open their eyes, but I think it's going to give them a good visual into the opportunities that exist for DirectBuy, for previewing that run list. And real quick heads up, when we figure out that favorite or watch list thing, which I haven't given you an update yet, so we'll announce it here. But our development team is working on that API for integration so that when they do preview our run list in MotoHunt, if they put a favorite on it and go, "Hey, yeah, that's something I'm interested in," that will show up on their NPA site too. When they log in NPA, they can see the stuff that they favorited. We call it a watch list, so we'll have to come up with some better terminology there. But today, that's what we call it, is the watch list. But when they favorite it on your site, it will automatically show up on their NPA watch list so that they don't have to go retrack it down or anything else. And on auction day, it's highlighted. It says, "Hey, you put this on your watch list," those types of things. So you heard it here first, Jacob, that we're working on that API to support that, because I think that's the next step as well. But I'm excited for the DirectBuy integration. Want to give you and Michael and your whole team appreciation and accolades for working on that over the last month or so. It's been very cool to see that come together.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time coming, and I agree with you. It's a natural evolution. And just to kind of break it down, the nutshell of how it works, dealers would source all of their used bike appraisals through the MotoHunt tool, right? Whether this was a trade, whether it was a purchase off the street, you got a website form, whatever, right? You've got this unit here that are coming from all sorts of different places. And the DirectBuy integration, it's just a simple button, right? You're looking at the appraisal, you're looking at the comps, book value, wholesale value from NPA. All these different resources are available for you in this one screen. And if the decision is made, well, I need to get a DirectBuy number on this thing because it's, like we said earlier, maybe not part of my normal makeup of bikes I carry, boom, it's a one-click, fill out a quick form, and it's submitted to you. And your team what would you say? And during business hours, how quickly is the NPA offer price given back to the MotoHunt tool?
The goal is 7 minutes, but give us 10 or 12 minutes. We rarely have a bid that goes beyond about 10 minutes. And we are online, basically Monday through Saturday. We are, in your time zone, whatever time zone you're in across the country. During business hours, we have at least 2 people, if not 3 people on our portal so that they can look at that bike, look at those pictures, look at your description, and get back to you. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, but get back to you right away with a take it to the bank number, literally, that says, hey, you can desk your deal on this number right now. Most of the time,
yep, that's amazing.
It's rare that a dealer's ever calling us, asking us for a number. Only when they give us something completely wacky that we haven't had one, and some crazy, those reverse trike Terex things that were out there. There are T-Rex and some real oddballs that take us a little bit of time to research. But man, if it's any of the major OEs, anything that was sold in the last 20-ish years, that's an easy 10-minute or less turnaround.
That's great. Yeah, it's super quick, super efficient, and yeah, you can literally do it while you're desking the deal and working that with the customer in the showroom at that moment. Just kind of expand a little bit from your seat. How important is it for dealers? We'd like to think that in 2025 they're a little bit more advanced, they're a little bit more with it, right? But I think what dealers are doing is maybe not adopting some of these data back tools as much as we think they should. From your seat, how important is this to you and to the dealer network that we serve when managers are wearing multiple hats and deal margins are getting tighter and age is creeping up on some of these used bikes? Where do the data back tools come in terms of importance level?
There's an interesting thing, and I go back to a slide I used in a presentation a couple of years ago. Is, hey, how do you come up with your wholesale value? The term ACV to me is a little worn out, because I talk to a lot of dealers that go, well, I ACV'd it for this or for that. And they're not actually representing the true actual cash value. They're just using the term as if it's the deal. And so I'm like, man, ACV I'm hearing dealers tell me what they ACV'd something for, not what the ACV is. And so I personally am starting a crusade for true wholesale value. Hey, what's the true wholesale value? Because what you actual cash value it for, okay, I learned that term in the application in the industry, and a lot of people did, from Gart Sutton and people, and it was a great term for a long time, but it's lost some of its meaning in my experience. So I go to true wholesale value, and when I think about true wholesale value, those electronic, digital, automated tools are critical. Recently was working with a dealer in Utah, and we had quite a spirited disagreement on how he managed his inventory versus what he believed it was worth versus what the market said, and what tools he used to get there. Now, he used one of my terms. He used the AGV, the actual gut value, right? He was concerned with whatever he believed was the value, and he would back that up with NADA because that's what he could finance it for, so it must be worth it. I will put somebody into that bike because I can get them financed, not because it's a good selling bike, not because I did something relative to the true wholesale value, so that if I have it for more than 100 days, I can actually liquidate it and get something. But I'm going with my AGV, my actual gut value, because you know what? I've been doing this a long time, and I know better than anybody else. Well, there was a lot of inventory that was over 100, 120 days old there. And you can understand why, because there was no liquidation opportunity. There was no opportunity there to say, hey, you know what? These 5 bikes have stuck around a little bit too long. Let's double check true wholesale. You know what? Yeah, might be upside down a little, 100, 120 days later, but I can stomach getting rid of those at the auction and get some fresh ones in here, something like that. So looking at the technology, looking at, hey, what are things actually selling for? What is that true wholesale value that, whether it's in 45 days or 95 days or 125 days, when I realize, or if I find that this was not the right product for my store, that I have an outlet. I'm not stuck with it. That's really one of the places the tools come in to me, as well as show what's out there in the market, right? I know a tool like MotoHunt, hey, I can see the other motorcycles that are similar for sale around me in, 100, 200, 500 mile radius, the whole market, whatever. That is a critical tool as well. And I think that helps establish, along with that aging, hey, there's a bunch of them for sale. And guess what? The oldest one is 25 days. Well, guess what? They must sell. Hey, there's a bunch of them for sale, and the oldest one is 125 days. Well, hold on. We don't want to be in the 125 day club. So what is the true wholesale in case at day 100, we need to make them.
You mentioned that last time, having a 90-day rule when it comes to a lot of our power sports, seasonality depending, but has that still held up in today's market? Are you still at that 90 to 100-day mark for aged inventory?
Absolutely. If you don't have a plan at 90 days, you have no plan, and you're just playing there's a butt for every seat game. And that's, to be a good sales manager, if all you had to do was buy bikes and hold on to them until they eventually sold, man, a lot of sales managers are overpaid. Because that's no real decision. You don't have to manage anything. You don't have to take risks. You don't have to be accountable for it. I know there's a lot of people out there and a lot of bikes sell eventually. The reality of the holding costs, the reality of the missed opportunity to turn that inventory, that's math that the automotive industry lives and dies by, quite literally. We are a passion-driven industry. We are a passion, buying experience. So we get a little bit of a pass on some of that stuff, which is why 90 or 100 days makes sense. And in the automotive industry, it's 60 days for all major national groups. They do not want to own anything over 60 days. At 61 days, it's wholesale. It's done. They want to refresh that investment immediately. So I know for us, we need a little more time. We do have that seasonality. If your 90 days is up, at the end of December, I would say, no, you probably ought to give it into January. But if your 90 days is up in April, May, June, and it hasn't sold in the peak of the season, man, I would get away from that thing as quick as possible and get into something that makes sense.
Yeah. There's definitely a framework that you need to live or die by when it comes to your turn rate or your age rate, when it comes to any specific model, based on value, based on time, based on seasonality, the area of the country that you're in. Any other pieces to that ingredient mix there that dealers kind of need to make when it comes to making decisions on, I got to cut it or I got to keep it?
I would say the number one thing that I see a difference in success with dealers in the pre-owned as well is those that actually have a plan and a process, that understand the importance of that turn time and will actually take action. And maybe that action is, hey, at 60 days, we write that thing down. We charge off part of that amount. We true wholesale value it, ACV it, whichever term you want to use, so that there's still some margin and mission for your sales team. Maybe you charge it off to, I don't know what account, but if you just keep hoping and hoping and hoping, you're wearing out your local customers, you're wearing out your sales team. And if you don't have a process or a plan that says, hey, we're going to keep 26 pre-owned frontline ready bikes in inventory, or 56, and we're going to manage it this way. These are the times of years we're going to buy strong. These are the times of years we're going to look at thinning out inventory. If you have not sat down in your dealership with your leadership team or your sales team and said, hey, we're going to do this for this type of inventory, you're missing an opportunity to do better at it, right? You do it with your OEs. You know when your ordering periods are. You know when specials come out. You know when model years change. You know all these things, and you act accordingly. You should have that same level of understanding and business planning with your pre-owned bikes. And if you're not, I guarantee you can be more successful with that type of thought process.
100%. Looking forward to the upcoming NPDA, the National Powersports Dealer Association Dealer Connect, September 21st through the 23rd. Are you going to be highlighting some of these areas in some of your presentation materials?
I am. I do have this. I'm looking at what I did last year, and there's some things I'd like to recycle because I think they're still very salient points. But I have some new thoughts and ideas and some really good anecdotes that I'm really biting my tongue because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet because I literally just kind of perfected one of them this morning. So perhaps after that, maybe we won't wait a year. Maybe in just a couple months, we'll catch up again on maybe a shorter version or something, or we'll pull one of my other NPA people in as well if you want, just to talk about different parts of our business. But I think there's some things out there that I've thought of that I want to present to the dealer base there in terms of how they view their pre-owned inventory and some tools that I think will help them, including a little bit even of that business model I just talked about. I've got a draft of something that might be helpful for them as a starting point to build that pre-owned inventory plan and management rather than buy it, price it, and pray, right? I mean, that right now it is, it's purchase, price, and pray that it sells is kind of how some dealers manage their pre-owned. So there's something there that I think we can help get them started with. And I won't pretend to know the perfect scenario for every dealership. I don't know what product is excellent in your territory, your exact seasonality, the quality of your staff, but I think there's some great framework that we've come up with that would be helpful.
Outstanding. I'm looking forward to it. You and Jim last year were outstanding. You guys brought the heat. You had some graphs, you had some really great talking points. What other types of things do you hope dealers take away from Dealer Connect that we're going to?
I think the biggest thing with Dealer Connect is and NPDA specifically, is the importance of the dealers getting and gathering and rallying around an entity like NPDA. We've seen what the tariffs are doing, and we've seen that that's going to trickle down to some parts supplying and additional things. And right, wrong, and different, I don't want to try that topic with anybody because I will be honest, I don't know enough. But what I do know is that the work NPDA has done to get on top of that and understand it and push for answers and clarity is huge. And if we don't have an entity like that doing it, boy, dealers independently we will die on the vine without an entity who's tracking this down and pleading our case with Congress or the Trade Commission or whoever it happens to be to get clarity and decisiveness and hopefully correctly priced things. We understand things might cost a little more here and there, but right now there is a lot of unknowns that we don't even know who's collecting the money, where it's going, when it's appropriate, when it's not. How do we price a $5 part that could have a 300% tariff and a $58 part that could have a 50% tariff? And there's so many variables right now that NPDA and the work of that entity to bring a common voice and mission of the Powersports dealer network to our government and our legal agencies or our legislative agencies, I should say, is huge. And if you're listening to this and you have not looked at NPDA, you're not a member, you could be part of the solution. Don't want to say you're part of the problem, but you could be helping the solution because you're not doing it now if you're not supporting these guys.
As well as visiting the Dealer Connect show coming up. I mean,
100%.
Being a member is super important as well, but being in the company of all these other dealers and collaborating, listening to what the NPDA is working on, listening to guys like you and all the seminars that they're there. I mean, it's really a really helpful organization for any dealer, regardless of the size or what kind of brands you carry. New, used doesn't really matter. It's really there for everybody. So, okay.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, Mike, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure, Mike. I always like to kind of leave us with a little bit of a bonus, kind of a wrap up final thought here. All things aside, outside of everything that we covered today, just the dealerships listening to this, what's just one quick thing that you wish every general manager or sales manager understood better about the auction world?
Boy, we don't set the prices. Your dealers do. Your contemporary dealers, the dealers around you are setting the prices, not me. If somebody's bidding a particular price for something, it's because somebody has a market for it. And perhaps you haven't figured out where your market actually is. That's probably one of the most common things is dealers tend to voice their thoughts about, hey, man, prices were super high, or I can't believe somebody did that. We are a dealer-only auction. These are dealers that are bidding these things and are going to take it back to their places and retail them. And I presume going to be profitable because these are typically the same dealers I see, week in, week out, month in, month out. I think there is an opportunity for dealers to be more understanding of what their true opportunity is in their retail market on the used side. And I think, understanding the auction's place to get the inventory that makes sense for you is huge. So I'll leave it with that simple. I could go a lot deeper, but I'm going to leave it right there, just in the spirit of simplicity and time. Understand that those auction prices are driven by dealers like you, nobody else.
I love that. And it's a great wrap-up point, too. All right, everybody. His name is Mike Murray. He's VP of Sales over at National Powersport Auction. Mike, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
You can hit me an email at murray@npauctions.com. It's on our website. You can find me. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably got Jacob's email. You can hit him up. He'll share that with you as well. You can call me. Jacob's got my number. I don't know if it's appropriate to put your phone number out there at all. My phone rings enough. But anyway, I enjoy talking with dealers. I had a dealer from NorCal call me yesterday. We spent 25 minutes on the phone. He has a local rep, but he and I have known each other for years. And he wanted my opinion on some stuff. So I love those conversations with dealers. We are a resource. We would like them to be successful because their success is ultimately NPA's success.
Be accessible. That's your motto. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all the time we got, Mike. Appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you and hanging out, maybe grabbing a bite to eat during the Dealer Connect show and
100%.
Listening to your seminars. For everybody listening, make sure that you're trying to get out to the Dealer Connect. If not, join NPDA as a member if you're not already. Check out NPA on their website. Mike's also on LinkedIn. And I think that's it, everybody. So thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jacob. Thanks, everybody.